Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. We're going to give 1 or 2 more minutes for more people to join. Welcome. Hi, everyone that just joined. We're going to give another minute for people to log in and join us, and we will start. Hello, everyone. Yeah. Okay, I think we can start. So today we're going to talk about shared cost allocation in the age of AI adoption. Very, very interesting topic. I think something that everyone has been thinking about in the FinOps. So let me introduce our speakers for today. So today with us, we have Daniele. Yeah, Daniele has been working in the FinOps space since 2020. He founded a company focused on cost optimization. He joined Finout in 2024. He supports Finout enterprise customer with cost efficiency, and increasingly, this has included a large chunk of AI cost. Also with us is Omshree. Hi. She's been a cloud FinOps engineer at Accenture with 3 years of experience in FinOps field. She works closely with customers to optimize their cloud spend, set up governance practice, and drive their FinOps adoption journey. Omshree has 3 professional certifications in the FinOps field. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Sifa. Thanks for having me.
So let's start. One more thing before we start: if you have any question, if you have any question, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will address them in the Q&A section at the end.
Great. Thank you so much, Ifat, and excited to be presenting with you, Omshree. Yes, today's talk is, we have some content that we will be presenting through to contextualize our experience with is exploding AI spend at customers that we work with, but also to dive in specifically to use cases around shared cost reallocation of AI spend. But as Ifat mentioned, this is definitely open discussion, so feel free to chime in with questions in the chat if you have them, and yeah, we'll field them during and at the end of the discussion. So FinOps for AI, AI for FinOps. There's a great session during the last FinOps X which distinguished these two, the difference between FinOps for AI, applying FinOps essentially framework and principles to growing AI spend, and then AI for FinOps, which is applying AI to FinOps in different ways. So Omshree, I'd be interested in hearing kind of how you define the two and what you're seeing more in terms of interest from customers that you're working with.
Of course. In my experience, customers are a little bit more inclined towards FinOps for AI because it gives them financial accountability across the entire AI lifecycle, right? Making sure that the infrastructure, the models, and even the experiments are that they run are tied to cost, usage, value, etc. But what I feel is for customers, the biggest trap is experimentation. Maybe teams get excited, they spin up clusters, they try a dozen models maybe, but half of the time they forget to shut down the models, right? The clusters, the GPUs. By the time finance see the bills, no one remembers which project they even belong to. So these are few mess in shared cost allocation, and that's where we say FinOps for AI is more in discussion, and
Yeah.
especially when it reaches to production, right? I mean, I see it as unit economics because I believe that FinOps really shines when the conversation moves from how much we are spending to, hey, what value we are getting by investing this X dollars in AI, right? So
Yeah.
this is what I feel FinOps for AI is actually about. And about AI for
Yeah.
FinOps, I have seen a little bit growth in that area as well, but not as much as what people talks about FinOps on AI. So I think these are my opinions on that.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's interesting how, you know, migrating to the cloud, it was, hey, costs are spiking, and we need to figure out a way to track cost efficiency with unit economics. And in the same way now with AI spend, it's exploding. Organizations are doing experimentation and trying to prototype, as you're describing, and then they need to figure out a way to track cost efficiency. And I agree with, AI features that can help FinOps practitioners do their job is great and they're happy about, but ultimately the FinOps for AI is the core requirement of their job and what they're being asked for from their organizations.
True.
One thing that's been interesting for us to reflect on at Finout is what's the same and what's different about AI spend relative to cloud spend, because in some ways it feels very unfamiliar and it feels like everything's new, and that can be daunting for FinOps practitioners. But in some ways it's extremely similar. You can apply the same FinOps principles and there's a lot of similarities. And so, what's the same fundamentally? We're still talking about usage-based pricing. You're paying for rate versus usage, and we're talking about GPU hours or tokens or API calls instead of EC2 hours or S3 API requests. You do have, it's not exactly the same, but you have similar rate levers. So there's things like scaled tiers that you can accomplish, or batching API discounts, which are similar to spot instances in the cloud world. And fundamentally, it's easy to spend a lot of money, similar to how in the cloud engineers become infrastructure purchasing departments, one person infrastructure purchasing departments. In AI, you've got AI engineers and AI product managers who are suddenly spiking costs a ton when it comes to AI. In terms of different, rapid growth, what Omshree's describing, this like prototyping phase with little regard to spend is happening, and it's creating a kind of a lack of governance. And you also have new stakeholders, sometimes new teams accountable for this spend, and new metadata. So you don't have your Kubernetes namespaces or your resource tags anymore, or your accounts. You have a new set of metadata from different providers to play with. Anything you'd add to that in terms of what's the same and different, Omshree?
Prototyping and experimentation is what I've felt that it is a huge hike and people don't know how to, manage it. And few experimentation don't even make it to production. So that's the difference that I feel that it was not that in traditional compute, right? And also in traditional compute, if we use AI, we are looking at machines which are 10 to 50 times more expensive than normal compute, which we used to do, right? So even that's also a concern in AI, that things are more expensive and it's really difficult to keep a track of it, right? So that's what I feel is a little bit different over here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. And I'm actually interested to hear, one of the things that Omshree and I have been discussing in preparing for this talk is just the complexity of the AI landscape, and the fact that where are you, what are you using in order to incorporate AI into your products and services? You could be using hyperscalers and managed service from hyperscalers like Bedrock or Vertex AI, or you could be using third-party APIs directly. And so there's a whole range. What are you seeing, Omshree, in terms of whether customers are using one or more, one or the other more, and in terms of how the phase of their product development affects where they are in this landscape?
So I see a mix of demands coming from customers. Traditionally, I see that a lot of enterprises, they leaned heavily towards hyperscalers like AWS, Azure, Oracle, Google. and that is because of the trust, the integration with existing workloads, and enterprise grade compliance or governance that they provide. And it's
Yeah.
also easier to use services like SageMaker, Bedrock, Vertex AI into their existing ecosystem where all the workloads have been there, right? But
Yeah.
here's I see the shift is happening. Many companies are experimenting directly with third-party tools like OpenAI or maybe
Yeah.
Anthropic or maybe new players
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
uh, and I believe that the reason is speed. They want access to latest foundation models without going through the
Yeah.
entire setup in any hyperscaler kind of situation. And I also believe that for a lot of innovation teams, time to value matters more than proper setup and things like that. That being
Yeah.
said, it's not a either or choice. When I see, I picture it as a hybrid adoption because customers might start prototyping with third parties like OpenAI or Anthropic, but when they scale, they need tight compliance, they need higher compliance and governance, and that's where I see that they migrated towards hyperscalers. So I've seen
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
of such examples where customers start from third party, they then migrate everything to hyperscalers when they scale up everything. So maybe, yeah, there are huge, differentiation between both of them. Few use this, few use third party. So yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. The idea that it's not all or nothing. You can use a patchwork, and maybe when you want to scale it and incorporate it into production and scale an app, you want to move it onto the managed service and also take advantage of your EDP and interact with your EDP. While if you're just prototyping, product teams might just be using third parties directly. That's a really interesting distinction, and you're right that it's not all one or the other. What are we seeing in our customers? So, we of course are investing heavily in FinOps for AI and AI for FinOps and figuring out ways to help practitioners. And so we're kind of seeing firsthand organizations that we work with really struggling with being held accountable for the AI spend and incorporating it into their existing FinOps strategy and existing FinOps framework. And so this graph shows just a trend that shows in relative terms the growth of AI cost spend at organizations that we work with, just an enormous spike over the course of the last year. And from our conversations with our customers, they're just getting started. A lot of them are in the prototyping phase that Omshree is describing, and they're getting ready to kind of scale that into their apps in the rest of 2025 and 2026. So this trend will likely just continue. And then when we talk to our customers, we see a lot of a range of feedback, lack of standardization. This also applies to complexity of the landscape, significant budget allocation. So a lot of FinOps teams are they're anxious about the growing spend because ultimately they're accountable for it, but they're being told by leadership, hey, we're investing in AI. Don't worry about AI spend because this is a strategic priority. Confusion. There's kind of confusion around how to break it down, which Omshree will discuss in a second, but also how to parse the metadata from these different providers. Multi-tool complexity. A lot of OpenAI direct integrations is something that we've noticed. A lot of customers that are integrating directly, and new stakeholders. And so FinOps teams that have been accustomed to working with engineering managers and working with the CTO are now being pulled into conversations with AI engineers and data engineers and VPs of analytics. And so it's a new set of stakeholders that they're needing to become familiar with and work with. Anything that you would add, Omshree, in terms of just kind of any anecdotes or frustrations or insights that you're getting from your customers in terms of being confronted with this new responsibility?
First one that I have faced is experimentation, as we have already discussed, right? So they don't know what experiments are going good, what are not, because they don't have complete visibility into the shared cost. And that's what we will talk about in our next challenges. So that's one thing, that they are so much frustrated that their experimentation phase is not ending and they don't know where to invest their money because they don't have clear visibility into, what's happening in which business unit or who owns a few of the cost. So that's one thing that I have seen from customers.
Yeah. Yeah, comment just now from Kristen Smith. Thank you, Kristen. That definitely can echo the shift in stakeholders, meeting a lot of new faces at the company. Company AI teams are growing, and FinOps teams now have a whole new stakeholder, part of the business that they are building relationships with and incorporating into their process. Great. I'm about to hand it to Omshree to talk us through some of the challenges, the problems, and the solutions with shared cost reallocation. I just, a brief reminder that this isn't a completely new problem, the problem of shared cost reallocation. It's already something that we have been dealing with in the cloud for a long time, whether it's something that can be tagged but is multi-tenant, like a shared database that multiple different apps are using, and we need to break up that shared cost to those apps, or whether it's something that can't be tagged, like data transfer or like support, and you need to break it up and charge it back to different teams or departments. It's not a new concept, but it's one that is extremely important in the world of AI, where you've got costs coming from these different providers. And so we're going to talk about this kind of familiar concept of shared cost reallocation applied to specifically AI spend.
All right. As Danielle already mentioned, that it's not something new, but shared cost allocation was complex earlier as well. And with AI in picture, it got even more complicated. And we'll discuss few of the challenges now. The first one, lack of visibility into shared AI spend. I can say that it is one of the biggest issues I've seen with AI adoption, which is around, shared AI spend. Let me try to give you a real customer example where they had multiple teams. They had R&D, they had data science, they had product, they had marketing, experimenting with different AI services. Everyone were using different AI services. Everyone was spinning up GPU instances. They are calling APIs like OpenAI, or they are trying to train their models on shared clusters. The problem was when the bill arrived, when the bill shows up at the end of the month, nobody could tell which team was driving which cost, and it all was just shown in a big huge AI bucket. And we know that it's really frustrating when we are not able to see exactly that what is the visibility into the shared cost. We do not see what teams owns up, or what product is using it, or what business unit is using this. And it becomes a real pain point, because if finance cannot allocate spend properly, how would leadership can decision, right? So what we tried to do it, obviously they lacked some visibility, so we tried to came up with some tagging discipline. We enforced some tagging policies. It was AWS environment, so what we did is meanwhile we tried to onboard a FinOps tool. That was our suggestion. Let's have a FinOps tool in place, and then let's see what happens, what's happening in your cost and everything. So meanwhile we tried to have SCPs in place, right? Without having proper tags, you won't be able to spin up any resource, or you won't be able to create any resource. So that was just a preventive control that we had. And then we had tagging discipline in place in FinOps tool as well. We had some automated tagging policies over there. Next, what we did is we rolled out automated cost allocation tools. The FinOps one, third-party ones that we were using, we divided across teams and projects, and then we built some real-time dashboards so leaders could see that which teams are consuming what, and how much of their spend was tied to successful project moving towards production. So that's what we did. We tried to have a tagging policy. We tried to implement a FinOps tool, and then we tried to showcase it to people that in a dashboard, to see that okay, these are the total spend, which business unit owns what data science owns, what project owns. And as a result, customer could actually measure return on investment on AI projects. So that's what we tried to do. That is one of the stories I had. Danielle, I'm sure you have experienced how customer face, lack of visibility in shared AI spend. Would you like to share any incidents or maybe any story with us?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you said resonates with what I've seen is just everyone rushing to use the new technology without setting up any governance guardrails. And then sometimes it's a new provider. So like, maybe if it's in AWS, they're familiar with the concept of tags, and maybe those can be used. But In OpenAI, for example, everyone's using a single API key, and there's no division of projects. And so it's also partly organizations becoming familiar with the new metadata and tools for organizing. Like in OpenAI, you can break into projects, or in Bedrock, you use inference profiles. So there's new world of metadata and structure that you need to use and get familiar with in order to start breaking up the spend. So definitely agreed.
It's true. All right, second one, I had a funny story around it, native tools and spreadsheet. And we all know that doesn't scale well. So earlier we were working with a startup company. It was a software as a service based company, and they were tracking their spend manually in spreadsheets, and they were downloading all the reports manually. They were, taking it into a spreadsheet and try to figure out which product or which teams owns what kind of cost. At first, it seems manageable to them. They had few accounts, but within months, as the business scaled, it became chaos because reports were outdated at the time they were generated. You cannot create a report and at the end of the month you just go back and see. What if you are exiting your budget in the middle of the month? You don't know that you are doing it, right? So leadership couldn't get a single source of truth, what is happening, which team is owing the cost and everything. That's when we try to implement a FinOps platform. We try to have automation first approach where, cost data flowed in automatically from all the accounts and services. You do not have to manually go download CUR reports or maybe your invoices to see where you're spending. You can see everything in the FinOps platform tool. Next is rule-based allocation. So what we did is we logically split across teams. Suppose a team is using GPU cluster. What we did is, if based on the usage metrics, we try to divide it. Okay, 50% of the cost would go to engineering, 30% to product, maybe 20% to operations or marketing, based on the usage. So these are few rule-based allocations that we did. And lastly, BI integration, which meant that finance team sync cost directly into their existing dashboards. And that will also give leadership a good visibility, a real-time visibility. What it did
Yeah.
in
Yeah, that's
it improved all the cost transparency. So
yeah, that's really interesting. I think especially that rule-based allocation, like that's where the real crux of the shared cost reallocation happens. And a lot of times we see what you described, which is, okay, there's this chunk of shared costs. Let's just give a percentage to each team. But then maybe a team says, oh, no, I didn't use that much of the Bedrock instance. Can you share, Omshree, is there any specific metadata or telemetry data that you've found that is helpful in terms of automating the distribution of shared AI costs, whether it's from OpenAI or whether it's from like Bedrock or these other providers?
So for OpenAI, I remember very clearly we try to have some proxy or middleware layer between it. So whenever it sends request, it tag it before. Priorly, it will tag it.
Right.
Maybe it's based on honor, based on team, based on business units.
Right.
So it will tag it, and then when you check the logs, when it has been requested to logs, you can see exactly, from where the spend is coming. And based on
Right.
that telemetry data, we try to reallocate the cost again to different
Right.
business.
Right.
That's what we have used in OpenAI. Yeah.
Got it. So then you know how many tokens each of the business units or apps consumed, and you can reallocate based on token consumption.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. You just mentioned that
Great.
people say that we are not spending this while using Bedrock or something. So that is actually our, third challenge. And I'm damn sure that everyone in their FinOps journey has some or the other way seen the disputes over cost ownership, right? So we have always seen that maybe if you go to engineering team, they will say, okay, we have not done this. And maybe your project team or your research team will say, hey, we are not taking hit for this. And that's the biggest question: who owns it? And nobody owns it. And until and unless you have proper mechanisms, proper standardization, proper policies in place, nobody will own any cost. So what to do in that situation is you can have a showback and chargeback models. You can show them, you can show each and every team what you are spending, how you are spending. It can be again based on predefined allocation policies, such as if you have decided that based on usage, engineering should get 50% of the ownership of GPU cluster or of maybe open APIs, whatever they're using tokens and things like that. Maybe 30% goes to product team, 20% goes to marketing team. Again, we have to have some pre-agreed allocation policies, which everybody agreed upon. And at the end of the day, you are paying for what you have used. And last one is to visualize it, data-driven accountability. Once it is there in the dashboard, this business unit has used this amount of cost after 1 month. I mean, you have to owe that, okay, you have agreed it, you are spending that much, your user metrics shows all these things. So there are data driven accountability as well. Once people see what they're spending exactly, they owns up to it, they try to remediate it, they try to save more, and then they will try to use their in maybe in other innovation projects or somewhere else, they try to reinvest it. So I think, yeah, disputes over cost is really common. And you don't have to be the enemy and tell, okay, you are owing this, you're doing this wrong. And FinOps persons or FinOps advisors are mostly, people look at them, engineering always look at them like, okay, he's coming to scold me, but that's not the case. You can just go to them, you can be a friend and say, hey, you know what, if you do all of these things, you can save some bucks, you could be good in eyes of leadership, you can show it in the meetings or something like that. So I think disputes have to take some backseat and have some ownerships in place. So
yeah, absolutely. Create accountability, and then you can figure out the leaderboards to create incentives and actually motivate teams to actually take action. Absolutely. I'm going to dive in and just show briefly some of the things that Omshree and I have talked about in the last few minutes. I know that we're a little short on time. Ultimately, there's 3 steps. There's kind of step 1 is just treating AI costs like a first-class citizen. And so making sure that whether it's OpenAI spend or Anthropic or whatever it might be, you're pulling it in with all the dimensions from that provider. Number 2 is incorporating the AI spend metadata into your existing showback and chargeback. And number 3 is allowing you to break up the shared costs with the methods that Omshree just mentioned, either percentage distribution or a breakdown using a metric like prompts per team, for example. So on my screen now, can you confirm, Omshree, you can see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So we're looking at the Finout platform, and making AI a first-class citizen is including cost dimensions from hyperscaler services like Bedrock or Vertex AI, and third parties like OpenAI. In OpenAI, for example, now we're not talking about tags any longer. We're talking about projects, and we're talking about API endpoints. And so the ability for practitioners to be able to use those dimensions in their FinOps platform is an essential part of their FinOps strategy now. And then the second piece of the puzzle is incorporating that metadata into their existing showback and chargeback. And so we're looking at a virtual tag creation within Finout right now. Virtual tags are the functionality in Finout that helps you allocate spend from across your different providers. And as you can see here, in conjunction with dimensions from AWS, Kubernetes, GCP, Azure, we can also now rely on those OpenAI dimensions in order to use that metadata to incorporate into our showback and chargeback. So here's a team virtual tag, and we can reference a certain OpenAI project for different teams, the Dwight Schrute team, the Angela Martin team. And then we can also use other things like endpoints or models or parent cloud service. And then the third step, as I mentioned, is breaking down a shared cost. And so grouping a shared cost, maybe it's OpenAI, maybe it's Bedrock, maybe it's Vertex AI, and being able to redistribute it. And so without the shared cost distribution, we've got this big chunk of shared spend that is, to Omshree's earlier point, it doesn't currently sit with an owner, and therefore anyone can raise their hand and say, that's not me. And we want to break it up and distribute it to teams. And so there's different ways to do that. As we were describing earlier, we can take a percentage to different teams and say, hey, to Pam Beasley, let's give 20%, and to Michael Scott, let's give 80%. That's an extremely clear-cut, transparent way to do it, but it's pretty crude in that it's not referencing actual usage data of that Bedrock spend. Using telemetry data that you send into Finout, you can also break up that shared cost and distribute it to teams based on actual usage. And so the example that Omshree just mentioned was using OpenAI prompts per team and distributing based on that. You can also use things like inference profiles in Bedrock along with CloudWatch data in order to create a telemetry stream and distribute Bedrock costs to different teams. And so that's what this example is, an example of using prompt tokens and being able to break up per user with this telemetry stream. And so here we've got no reallocation. If I toggle it off, you can see this chunk of shared Bedrock spend. And if we toggle it on, you can see that we've used this external telemetry in order to distribute the shared Bedrock spend. So I will come back here and I'll pass it to Yifat to surface any questions that might have come up during the discussion.
Cool. We are a bit over time, so I might just choose one question, and then I think everyone will get a recording of the webinar, which has been great. And feel free to reach out to any of us with questions. So I'm going to choose one because we had a few, and then, like I said, you can feel free to reach out to any of us later. So one, do you see most organizations adopting a separate AI budget for their AI initiative or incorporating AI spend into existing team budget? Omshree or Danielle, if you want to share.
That's a great. I'll give a quick answer, and then I'm interested to hear Omshree's take. I think a lot of organizations right now are saying, hey, we want to incorporate AI, and they're earmarking a separate AI budget to just do the experimentation. Omshree was describing that now they're in the prototyping phase, and they say, hey, we're earmarking a big chunk of AI spend for that. But ultimately, they're asking themselves, how are these AI features going to affect our margin per product? How is it going to affect our COGS? And so they are, during experimentation phase, treating it as a lump sum budget and then planning for incorporating it into existing showback per product or showback per team so that they can actually get a sense of margin. Omshree, I'd be interested to hear if that's what you're seeing as well, or do you see something different when it comes to AI budget?
I mean, that's what I see. I completely agree with you. I mean, for experimentation, they do give another chunk, but when it comes to production, when they want to carry it forward, they try to accommodate it in their existing budgets. So that's what I'm seeing as well. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, everyone. It was a great webinar, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. As I mentioned, everyone will get the recording into their email. And thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Omshree. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.